Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we are talking about why we will win the $75 hint, the price skyrocketing, and many more in this video. Now, hopefully this is the last time we talk about the dilution, but it is something that's obviously brought a lot of attention for AMC. And one of the quickest way to talk about this is just understanding that going into the future, we have paid 125 million in debt. We have no debt due until 2029. We have extra cash and we have a massive run of movies that are coming out. And so this is pretty much the mindset that you need to have going forward, which is understanding where AMC is right now. And what we have to understand as well is going for the next few quarters, when we see the earnings report, when we see the fundamentals, you're going to see how it won't have a debt issue lingering upon us like we did before because of what we're doing. And so that's obviously very positive. Now, it isn't to say that AMC or Adam Aaron isn't going to tackle the future problems in a kind of soon coming, but we have to understand that fundamentally we are in a way better position and it's going to look even better. But also another big thing right now is that along with the price drop and with everything that's ongoing right now, a lot of it is because market makers and short sellers are trying to take advantage and captivate on this opportunity. And what I mean by this is that we already knew that AMC dilute. We've seen them dilute in the past before. We know that this is an effort, that this is an ability that AMC has. And we talked about how efficient this is. This is an ability that AMC has that most companies want but don't have the ability to. And is why we see the market makers, the short sellers, constantly manipulate the price, because they realize that when AMC is at $10, people will be willing to buy these shares. When AMC is at $20, people will be willing to buy these shares. The only difference is that AMC will be able to raise a lot more money at $10, at $20 than where we are right now. And that's why they consistently manipulate us. But it's also knowing that this is something that institutions are already aware of, apes are already aware of. People who have been long invested into the AMC, people who have done their due diligence into AMC are all aware of this. And so this should have already been something that reflected in the price. And so whilst the price, of course, of going in at a $2.10 per share for the dilution, we definitely are seeing short sellers trying to take advantage of this. And it's why suddenly you're seeing the hate, the FUD going crazy all of a sudden. It's because during this whole time of AMC, bear in mind, when we saw how well the box office was, when we saw how well the Q1 earnings was, when we saw the price going up by over 100%, it was silence within these narratives. There were no haters, there was no negative narratives. And now, the moment we see any hindrance, any slight drops, where even though we saw a 20% drop, but we are actually better off fundamentally, you can see how everyone's coming out to talk about the bankruptcy of AMC, to talk about the end of AMC, where rather it's the complete opposite. But that is just something we talked about with how, if you've done your due diligence, if you've done your research, you know where we stand. Now, furthermore, I'm no CEO, but keeping the company alive through one of the hardest periods in history looks like a win to me. AMC faced enormous pressure, avoided bankruptcy, paid down debt, and added new revenue streams. Call it what you want, but surviving while others were betting on your failure is winning. And so we have to realize what Adam Aaron has been doing. A lot of the things that I think he is doing right now isn't for a short-term purpose, but rather for the longevity of AMC. We are seeing some of the decisions he made 3 years ago, 2 years ago, to start having an effect right now. And so it definitely wouldn't surprise me to see some of the decisions being made now to have an effect on AMC 2 years later, 3 years later. And one of the biggest reasons for why I'm talking about this is really just understanding that everything we do right now may have an impact on us short term. It may be a negative impact or it may be a positive impact. But what we have to understand is that in the long run, it's something that will really put us in a good position. One of the examples I could give to you right now has been the fact that during 2023, during 2024, when Adam Aaron was raising money to start investing in premium screens, he faced a lot of backlash for it. People were talking about how he shouldn't be doing that. Instead, he should be paying off the debt instead. Now, fast forward to where we are right now. As we see the box office thriving, AMC is able to captivate the biggest market share within the industry precisely because we started investing into these premium screens before anyone else. And so this is what we've said with how a lot of the decisions that they've made is definitely having a big positive long-term impact. And so it's something that I'm not surprised about with where AMC is going. Now, another big thing as we talk about Adam Aron and the decisions that he has made, recently we've seen him talk a lot about and hinting towards 75. And so this 75 number is definitely popping up a lot. And again, whether it's the tinfoil hat moment, or whether it's something that is truly happening, we are seeing how the links are being made. Now, this first started off with something that Adam Aron tweeted, and we talked about this before, where he was doing the poll and he changed his poll where on his second option of over $75 sixth film in 2026, he redid it, but instead put two N's. And now the things that we were trying to kind of take from that was, is he trying to focus on $75? Now, with the recent cash offering, the cash raising, what we've seen is how we are paying off 125 million, we raised 200 million, and we're left with 75 million. And now it just looks like we are back at this 75 number again. And it definitely feels a lot with whether or not it's to do with potential buybacks, the potential dividends of issuing, or whether he's trying to hint that what we are doing right now is ultimately going to take us to $75. Again, nothing is being confirmed. These are all kind of just ideas being thrown around, but it is quite interesting that we are seeing this 75 number being hinted so many times and how it's being linked together. Now, another big thing about kind of the offering is that, remember, in the past before, when we saw AMC having the offering, we saw how we see the price skyrocket to over 480%. And it's during the time where we are seeing similar things happening right now. Remember, especially as of such, recently, we're definitely seeing how market makers, institutions, banks are all facing liquidity problems. So the fact that we're seeing this again and how closely it resembles of when we saw it back in 2021, it definitely has me expecting that some major moves are happening. Another big thing is that with the current dilution, remember we talked about how firstly, we have no more debt until 2029. So it isn't an immediate concern for AMC to pay off debt. The reason why they would pay off debt is firstly to improve the fundamentals, secondly to save on interest payment. But there is no kind of severe concerns of debt causing bankruptcy to AMC. So on that front, we are doing very well. But also is looking at what they've said before is that as a result, AMC does not anticipate any material debt principal repayments coming due prior to calendar year 2029. This is what we talked about with how there is no more payment, but also how potentially what we are seeing them right now is that they won't be trying to do another offering. This isn't to say there's not going to be no more offering, but they want to do an offering only if the price is at a very, very luxurious price. So whether that's $5, whether that's $10, whether that's $20. Because, and again, this is very, very simple, AMC, if they wanted to raise $200 million again, with the AMC price being at $20, they will only have to sell 10 million as opposed to the 95 million that they've done. And you can see how that is obviously going to benefit AMC a lot. And now what we are seeing is also the fact that there is a 45-day lockup, no new dilution before early August. So at the very least, that is something that we are expecting. But again, unless something major is happening, unless AMC has an opportunity, whether it's acquisition or if they want to do an immediate buyback or anything else, or again, maybe buyback would be stupid because you're diluting shares to then buy back shares. But again, it kind of just goes on to say that unless AMC sees some major catalyst happening, sees some major things that they need to do, it doesn't feel like to me that there will be any dilutions anytime soon. Also, something very important to note is that just because of the dilution, it doesn't take away any of the things that AMC has achieved. People are still going to the movies. The dilution won't stop revenue or box office records. And instead, it's only just put us in a better place where more of that revenue will become profit because we're seeing less interest payments. Now, amidst all of this, you're going to be seeing a lot of FUD, you're going to be seeing a lot of negative narratives. But what you have to understand is that your fellow apes are doing the complete opposite, where we're seeing more and more people buy more and more shares. And these are just some of the examples. These are some users you will see as well that we've talked about. They are just constantly loading the boat, they're constantly accumulating shares. And it just talks about the power that the apes have, but also how people view this as opportunity. And if you want to see an example, here you have Roensch buying 300 more shares. Again, the lower AMC drops, the better the opportunity, the better the discount. And just like we've seen this before, when AMC very recently has shown this exact move, when it dropped below $1, when it was at 0.93, when the whole media was kind of talking about AMC, when everyone that we saw on Twitter that weren't apes, but were constantly bashing and talking how you should sell AMC, apes took advantage, apes took the opportunities and loaded the boat. And we saw how that obviously greatly benefited us. And so we're kind of just in that same situation again. Also, what we're seeing right now is just how the shares available are seeing massive drops. And this is what we said with how they're trying to take advantage of this. They're trying to manipulate the price because they see massive volatility. We're seeing 9.4 million shares being borrowed. You can see 9.4 then going to 0. But again, it doesn't scare people. Whilst it is scary, it doesn't actually scare people. It doesn't actually scare the apes. Again, it just brings out the apes want to then buy even more shares. And now a big reason for why I think the manipulation is happening, and something we talked about before, is that ultimately, the reason why they hate and want to destroy AMC is because this stock can make normal people rich. And that's what they're doing. And this is something that we have, again, I strongly believe as well. It's because they want to keep the money within the institutions and not towards the retail. But AMC is obviously doing the very opposite of that. Now, we're also going to be seeing AMC going into Q2 earnings as well. Now, so far for Q2, we have done exceptional, and it's only going to continue into Q3 and Q4 as well. And remember, the earnings won't be changed just because of a dilution. Nothing has changed fundamentally apart from the fact we have paid off more debt, apart from the fact we'll have less debt payment. The revenues, all of that, they're still going to be the same, if not better than what we were expecting. And so that is still something that is very, very appealing for the investors. So you can see, has it been a successful week for AMC and for the holders? We have 125 million 2027 debt paid off, no material debt repayments due to 2029, 75 million added to cash on hand, every share shorted from 284 down is a future buy, 9% off the low. You know, so many things that are ongoing. And if you take a look at another perspective, options gamma either way. AMC has no weekly options. Why this time of the year? And this year, never before in the 5 years plus. And essentially what we're seeing is right now, it's just how the options going on for AMC has been extremely volatile, but also extremely suspicious, where we're seeing some weeklies actually being taken away, where in the past before, we have seen it. And one of the biggest things for why it's happening right now, especially, is the fact that we are seeing weeklies being taken away during the time where they can't keep AMC options below its max pain. They're seeing a lot of calls going in the money and being exercised, and suddenly they're taking away some weekly options. And all of this just goes down to what we've said with how they're trying to reduce the liquidity. They're trying to reduce the pressure that we apes have been forcing on them. Because if we were constantly getting options above the max pain at these $2 calls, at these $250 calls in the money, and we're forcing them to buy more shares, you can see how that is obviously creating a liquidity issue for them. And that's what they're trying to prevent. Also, if you take a look at the technicals, again, doing very well for AMC. We are seeing in there. I've already talked to you guys about the amount of technical indicators that have shown how positive AMC is. So I'm not going to bore you guys with that. But you can see how both fundamentally and technical, we are looking at a very good AMC. Also from the algorithms is that if we're seeing a similar algorithm, we can easily see AMC go above 1600%, like we've seen with Beyond Meat. And again, this is something that is very, very normal for AMC as well. Also, if we take a look at this, when you take a look at where AMC is right now, when you take a look at where it's going on for the future, we are still in a good position. Is why I've said that we are still in a very good place, and we shouldn't be scared by what is kind of happening in the short term. And just like we've seen in the past with how apes was obviously something that allowed AMC to go, this is what we've said with how you're seeing how some of the decisions made in the past before is still having lingering effect now, and is lingering positive effect. And that's what we've said with how a lot of the decisions that we are seeing now, whether it's a bad short-term impact or whether it's a positive short-term impact, it definitely is going to have a positive long-term impact. Also, it looks like they're trying to take liquidity away by having Wendy's actually squeezing. Now, this is an odd thing, and it is something that we've seen them do in the past before, but the attention has always been on AMC. And finally, reverse repo at 5.7. It goes to talk about how the liquidity is still being needed. It goes to talk about why AMC is still needed. And again, at the end of the day, the market makers will fail. As always, not to say financial advice, and I'll catch you guys next time.